Cannabis Common Sense, the show that tells the truth about marijuana and the politics behind its prohibition.
Of Cannabis Common Sense. Our show is a production of our nonprofit organization, the Hemp and Cannabis Foundation, and its affiliated political committee, the Campaign for the Restoration and Regulation of Hemp. That's THCF and CRRH. We have a few guests here this evening. Tim Pate is providing musical accompaniment. Thank you, Tim. And we have Mr. Russ Balville and Sister Sativa from Oregon Normal. And Sister Sativa, you also have a weekly show on, or bi-weekly show on KBOO. Used to be weekly or something. Oh, not anymore? Well, you used to.
Yes. Yes, I'm looking forwarding into cable TV very soon.
That's what I heard. That's what I heard. Good practice. We will be back in just a moment with taking your phone calls, a little music, and some film clips of Dr. Todd McCurry at the Oregon Medical Cannabis Awards seminar in 2005. But first, we'll bring out our infamous dancing cannabis leaves.
I feel the force.
You know, some weeks those leaves are just so exciting they just won't stop dancing. I think this was the week for that, for real.
That was really nice. Welcome to our show. How are you doing, Russ?
I am
Welcome
doing
back.
fabulous. It's good to be here. Thank you.
Great for coming back. And Sister Sativa,
Yes, indeed.
welcome back as well.
Thanks a lot. It's great to be here.
We're all hardworking activists and volunteers, and we're ready to take your phone calls and questions. If you call us at 503-288-4448. That's 503-288-4448. We're taking your calls up to the top of the hour, so we have a ways to go.
I've decided to make a declaration.
Go right ahead.
You remember
Declare.
how 40 years ago, 1969, they called it the Summer of Love? I think this Memorial Day begins the summer of legalization.
All right. I like that
declare.
idea.
Sounds good to me.
I'm willing to start working more for that.
Yeah, well, we've seen some great news with regard to marijuana law reform. I mean, we just saw Rhode Island's House pass its compassion center bill,
Yeah.
which would license up to three nonprofit dispensaries within the state of Rhode Island for their medical marijuana patients. They passed it 63-5, and the Senate previously had passed it like 35-2. So it's
So that's a pretty
completely veto-proof.
strong majority there. That's,
we're doing real well.
Exciting.
We just
And
passed.
then I think one of the most exciting things this week was the fact that the Supreme Court denied Satori
Yes.
to the case where San Diego County and San Bernardino County had appealed the California's Proposition 215 and the medical marijuana law in that state. And so the Supreme Court, by denying review, upheld the now ruling decision of the California Appeals Court that said that the state's regulation of medical marijuana supersedes the federal law.
Yep.
And so that was upheld by the Supreme Court in denying review of that.
And think of how much money that San Diego and San Bernardino counties wasted in pursuing these legal strategies that were failing at every point along the way and failing badly.
Yeah.
There was no question that the courts weren't going to uphold that.
We have an office right on the border of San Bernardino County, in Riverside County, between San Bernardino and San Diego. And this summer, my wife and I went and testified before the San Bernardino County Board of Supervisors, urging them not to appeal this at that time to the California Supreme Court. And then they upheld the appellate court. And then they moved and appealed at the U.S. Supreme Court. So the fact that the Supreme Court denied means that the initial California Court of Appeals ruling is now in law.
Yeah, and that's going to affect all the medical marijuana states.
Exactly. And so it basically says that the Controlled Substances Act explicitly says state regulation of medical practices supersedes the federal government's, because the Controlled Substances Act itself has a clause that says that, and the Constitution of the United States didn't give the power to regulate state medical practices to the federal government. That was reserved to the states and always has been exercised by the states.
Yeah, this is such a strange little dance we have to do between state sovereignty and federal control. It's and medical marijuana is the place where this is happening. We're seeing it in Minnesota. Their house just passed their medical marijuana bill, but the bad news about the Minnesota bill is that they were trying to get past Governor Pawlenty's veto pen, and so they stripped down this bill so that only terminal patients could get medical marijuana. Cancer patients wouldn't be able to get it for their nausea. They stripped it down so that patients wouldn't be able to grow their own medicine either. So this is one of those situations where the veto might actually work out better for us in that it'll kill a bad bill, and we can come back with a better constitutional amendment in the future.
Yeah. And I understand, Melody, you were going to update us on the fact that the Dutch medical marijuana producers recently are visited us.
Well, actually, a couple things are happening on the state level that are very interesting. First of all, a couple of weeks ago, actually, for the first time, this is a huge victory, the industrial hemp bill moved out of committee for the first time ever, and I think it's been introduced about 4 or 5 times. So that was a huge beginning. And also, the beginning of last week, a bill that's going through the legislature that would, among other things, reschedule cannabis to Schedule 2 also was voted on by the House. I believe it still has to go through the other chamber, and we'll see what becomes of it. But yes, Madeline and I went down to Salem on, what day was that? Wednesday. Wednesday, because a group of 5 people from the Netherlands were there to give testimony, informational testimony to the legislature. There were 2 people from the Dutch government, one person who is a botanist from the University of Leiden, which is just outside of Amsterdam. And then one gentleman who owns the only company that is currently licensed by the Dutch government to produce medical cannabis. There were 2, but the other one couldn't keep up with. They have very high quality standards, which we talked with them in quite a lot of depth about. So they had an opportunity to testify in front of the legislature for an hour, and then they met privately with law enforcement and the Office of Management Budget, and had a little bit of time afterwards for further questions from the legislature. So I thought that was a huge breakthrough. They have been making a tour. They've been touring around. They spoke with ASA. They had been down talking to Schwarzenegger's people in California, and I believe that they were heading, I don't know where, they were going somewhere else before they were going back to the Netherlands. So a lot's going on, and I really think that, as you said, I don't know if it's going to happen this summer, but this summer is the year that we should really just take the bit in our teeth and say, you know what, it's time. We're done with this. All the momentum's on our side. It's looking really good.
Go ahead, Tim.
Well, I've got another piece of news, too, since we're all sharing news right now. This last week, U.S. District Judge Marilyn Patel sentenced our dear friend Eddie Lepp to 10 years mandatory minimum for having grown over 1,000 marijuana plants for a medical marijuana garden in Lake County. And so our dear friend, who's been on this show many times and been to all of our shows, is
and spoke at all of our hemp stock festivals to date. He has been allowed to remain released until July 6th. He has to turn himself in for federal custody.
That's correct.
And then Judge Patel said that she disagreed with the law, but she had no choice but to follow the mandatory minimum. And that she hoped that the law would be changed and that Lepp would get out before his sentence went on too much longer. So, well, that leaves the rest of the work for us, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Well, something we can definitely do here is you can call President Obama's office at 202-456-1111 and demand a commutation or a pardon for Eddie Lepp.
Exactly.
If Scooter Libby can go free,
That's right.
Eddie Lepp should go free.
That's true.
Absolutely.
We have a phone caller. Hello, caller. You are on our show. Hello.
Hey, Paul, how's it going?
Can you hear me, caller?
Hello. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay. I was wondering if you have any strains to recommend for anxiety.
Well, you know, I often tell people that, you know, there are differences between sativa and indica, and indica is more of a sleepy kind of high, where sativa was more of an energy sort of high for those who understand that. And but it's really the same strain can produce different reactions based on how long it was allowed to mature. A plant that's harvested 6 weeks into bud is going to be a lot more energetic, so to speak, less lethargenic than one that's harvested 8, 12, or even 16 weeks into the flower cycle. The longer they flower, generally, the more sort of narcotic they become.
Okay. And also, I had a quick question. I applied for my medical card. I am legal because I got my copy and the registered mail receipt. How long is it taking OMMP to process that application? Do you know?
You mean at the state level?
Right. Yeah. Cause I sent.
Well, as soon as in the state of Oregon, as soon as you turn in your payment to the state, you're legal then. In other states, such as Montana, you're not legal till the state issues the permit. And in Las Vegas, it's that way as well. Or Nevada, I might say. And so it depends on the state that you're in. But in Oregon, as soon as you pay your fee to the state and turn in your documentation, which is an application, a physician certification page, and a copy of your ID, then you become legal then.
And they are quite backlogged there.
It takes them a while to print the card, and the longer it takes them to print the card, the longer your legal period is. If it takes them 4 months to print the card, when they print it, in Oregon anyway, they will print it as of the date it's printed, so it's good for a year from that date.
Yeah, we turned in paperwork for our cards in March of last year. Didn't get our card until the end of May, so that was like an extra 2 months worth of time there that we gave.
Over the 9 years that I've been on the program, I think I've gained a full year.
I have.
I really have. So
I have, yeah.
Just be glad it takes them a little while because you're gaining time here, and
Sounds good.
Another thing about when people ask that question about what strains would you recommend, you should also note that a strain that works for you may not work for me.
That's right.
Our body chemistries are going to have different reactions to different strains. I'm a big fan
Different
of cheese.
conditions.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of cheese myself, but I know other people don't like that so much. So it depends on the person.
Yeah, that's one of the pretty narcotic ones, so to speak.
it was a winner in Amsterdam the year I was there. Cheese was one of the winners, so absolutely, I'd say it was a winner.
It's one of my favorites, too.
We won 4th place in the Oregon Medical Cannabis Awards this year with a cheese strain. So there you have it.
Was that cheddar?
THCF Medical Guards, I might say.
Roquefort.
No, it was the cheese strain, grown outdoor organically. If you're out there and you have a question for us tonight, give us a call at 503-288-4448. That's 503-288-4448.
You know, when we're talking about this this summer of legalization, we're going to be getting a lot of media, and we're so far already this year getting more media for marijuana law reform than we've seen in years.
Yeah.
And you're going to hear...
I haven't seen anything like the recent media blitz on regulation and the talk of marijuana legalization in my lifetime.
Yeah.
It's never been anything like it. So we're seeing a move to a new progressive era, I hope.
Yeah.
And it's going to take a lot of concerted effort to take advantage of that.
Yeah. And you're going to hear a lot of reefer madness, crazy sort of things coming out of the prohibitionists. And I wanted to address one on today's show and give you some little tips on dealing with it. And that's that gateway theory. You're always going to hear, gateway, marijuana leads to harder drugs. And the way to combat that is to realize they're looking at it backwards. They're looking at all the heroin and cocaine addicts who may have once used marijuana, instead of looking at all the people who use marijuana and how few of them actually move on to harder drugs. Here's the 3 numbers to remember: 7, 21, 15, and 1. For every 721 people who have ever smoked marijuana, only 15 have used cocaine last month, only 1 used heroin last month. So there you go, 7, 21, 15, 1.
That's a great number. I've often said, and the Institute of Medicine through the National Academy of Sciences wrote in their report back in 2001, Marijuana is Medicine, that marijuana is not a gateway drug.
Right.
But I've always held it's a gateway to the black market.
Exactly.
And once you take marijuana out of the black market, the use of all those other illegal drugs is going to decline. I mean, you can go to Washington today in D.C. and ask people who are using cocaine who say, I would not use cocaine if I had marijuana.
Yeah.
And so it's just a matter of regulating a relatively innocuous substance, and we'll see a drop in the use of other much more harmful substances, such as alcohol, cocaine, speed, and other pharmaceutical drugs. I really do believe that, and I think that'll be a beneficial thing.
They never call tequila a gateway drug because you can't find coke and heroin in the liquor store.
That's right.
Hey, we have a question from the audience. We have a live audience here at 2760.
Let's hear it from the audience. Hey!
You're welcome to come down any Friday night. And how are you doing, Reverend Will?
I'm doing fine, Paul. How are you?
Great. Thanks for coming in.
Well, I have a twofold question. One is that in 1991, well, first it's a statement, then a question. In 91, I sat at the state capitol for 40 days and 40 nights trying to talk to the governor and to Dave Frohmeyer.
I remember that.
I presented to them the fact that if they would accept $100 off the top of every ounce that was grown in the state at that time, that they would have the tax that Barbara Roberts was walking around the state trying to find.
Right.
Now, if we extrapolate that to now and then tell these people how much money this state has cost them by not listening then, maybe one of the ways we could do that is with this commercial that the state of Oregon is putting out right now, where they are asking for a way to revitalize the economy here in Oregon. It's very simple, folks. Legalize pot.
Yeah, tax and regulated. Haven't you run some numbers on that, Russ? On the
State of Oregon spends $61.5 million enforcing marijuana prohibition laws, and our estimates are legal tax market. We could raise $300 million probably.
And that doesn't even talk about the more effective use of law enforcement resources. They say nationwide, out of all arrests, 47% are just for marijuana.
Yeah. Yep.
And the majority of those, the vast majority, are for simple possession.
Yeah.
And so it's a huge waste of law enforcement resources.
It's ridiculous. You know, I just wanted to get back to the media that we've been getting recently in the movement and to remind everybody that it is still Medical Marijuana Awareness Month in Portland, Oregon.
That's right.
And it will be until
Portland's
the end of the
Mayor
month.
Sam Adams for issuing a proclamation a couple weeks ago that May is Medical Marijuana Awareness Month.
And you know, you
Mayor
just don't
Adams.
get better TV coverage than we got from Channel 8 on that story.
That was a really good one. You can still see that on our website.
That was pretty impressive stuff.
hemp.org/news and on the OraNormal site. You know, isn't this weekend the medical marijuana meeting?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, tomorrow
at the
700 Northeast Deacom.
At the Village Ballroom, 700
Village
Northeast
Ballroom,
Deacom.
above Rumpsbanker's restaurant.
Yes, you should be there before 11 o'clock. It's for card holders only.
It's about 2 blocks east of MLK Junior Boulevard.
More like 3 or 4.
3, okay, maybe 3,
Close enough.
3.5.
Yeah, so
I
we'll be
drive
giving
fast.
out cuttings, and hopefully we'll be giving out donated medicine. If you have cuttings or medicine that you'd like to donate, please bring it to the meeting because we can't give out what we don't have. So we hope we'll see you there tomorrow.
Will, did you want to say something else?
Well, yeah, the other part of that is the question, and the question is, do you
Okay.
think that we can get together as a group and to come up with a commercial that we could put that response out, and not only in putting it out, but to show in the background all the things that you talk about up here where we can actually have fiber and fuel and Dave Siever's thing and all these different things
I
like in the
assure
background
you
and meld it together.
that sometime before the next election season, commercials like that are going to start appearing in this state.
Yes.
They will. So we're all going to
Yes.
have to work together to make them effective.
And on a
I think
national level,
in combination with a state initiative petition to end adult marijuana prohibition. And, you know, we're working on that. We've worked on it in the past. We had a version we filed last year. After polling on it, after we filed it, we found we needed to make some changes in it to make it stronger and more likely to pass at the poll. So we're working on that, and a model will be introduced forthwith. But anyway, if you have a question for us tonight, give us a call at 503-288-4448. We do have a caller. Hello, caller.
Hello?
Howdy.
Do you hear me?
You bet.
Yes.
I have a comment about I think they should legalize marijuana, and they should tax it like they do everything else. But all the police agencies all across the United States are so afraid, and it's not because it's a gateway drug, because it's not.
Yeah.
They get
Because 47% of their arrests are arresting us, you know.
You know, they had a lady here in Portland in a wheelchair. Did you hear about that one?
Yeah,
She
we
had
had
his
a
back-
quadriplegic patient in Kitsap County, Washington,
They
who
took a wheelchair.
was arrested and hauled into court nude on a gurney, like a slab of meat almost. And we were there testifying on behalf of another defendant by the name of Bruce Olson, who was subsequently acquitted, and met this other fellow, Glenn Musgrove, who they later dropped the charges on, and he came into our office and made a very generous contribution. So we got to thank Glenn Musgrove, and we're just very fortunate we were there to see the awful treatment. I mean, they brought this quadriplegic man in nude on a gurney, covered up by blanket. We thought it was a dead body at first. You know, what are they dragging a dead body into the courtroom for? And then we found out it's a medical marijuana case.
Oh.
And, you know, we're working with the Cannabis Defense Coalition and the Seattle Hemp Fest organization this year in trying to raise awareness. And I spent a couple days testifying there, as did Dr. Orvald, and that's where we found Mr. Musgrove's case. Fortunately, that was thrown out, but still, it just shows the extent to which these folks will go. And it's been pretty nasty in Washington State. I would say the laws in Washington State have been among the most litigious in the entire country.
Yes.
We actually spend more time in court with Washington State cases than we do with
all the other states put together.
Times two.
Yeah,
all the other states put
it's
together.
Because of how they're written that you have to prove you're innocent up there rather than you go in. I have a card. I am innocent. This is we have this right. Well, they voted you have the right, but when the police get you and stop you and arrest you, you have to still go to court.
Yes.
And you have to go through the arrest process and the legal process up in Washington State.
Well, the worst thing is for the longest time until just last year there was no limit listed in the law. Washington State was the second state to write their law. Oregon wrote it after Washington and California had, and Oregon and Washington passed them simultaneously in November of '98, where California's went into effect in November, or was passed in November of '96. But the law up there simply said you could have a 60-day supply, and in certain counties, most rural counties, the sheriffs interpreted that to mean none. 60-day supply was none. And I actually went and testified in cases where the patient or caregiver only grew 1 or 2 plants, and they were still prosecuting these elderly, sick patients. We got a call, even after the Olson case and this new Musgrove case, from a lady just a couple weeks ago in that same county, Kitsap County, sometimes known as Kidnap County to Washingtonians. But she had shown the police her medical marijuana permit, and they used that as a pretext to bust her door in, saying, she's got medical marijuana, that proves it, and kicked her door in and shot her dog. In the Olson's case, they poisoned their dogs and then held the wife hostage and said, if you sign a confession against your husband, then you can get veterinary help for your dogs that are breathing from their arsenic poisoning from the police. And that was one of the tactics this WestNet drug unit uses up there. We're hoping to...
This sounds like something out of a Kafka novel. It's horrifying.
It is. And, they just put such incredible pressure. Bruce Olson went to trial, but they pressured his wife, who was clearly innocent, to take a plea bargain offer by saying you're going to do 17 months in the state prison if you don't plead guilty. And if you do plead guilty, you'll do 6 months home detention with an ankle bracelet. So she's still trapped there on supervised release, even though she served her sentence now. And the whole family is ready to move to another state, maybe Oregon.
But if they talk about taking a bite out of crime, they need to legalize marijuana, because look at all the drug cartels. They'll be out of business.
That's right.
I agree.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Well, let's make them go bust real criminals, Here in Portland, if you have your car stolen, they want you to write a report. They don't even send a police officer to look at it. And
they want you to pay to get your car out, too.
Yeah.
They send you a form.
But at the same time, if you've got 3 or 4 grams of marijuana, they're there.
Yeah.
Yes.
They want that bud.
Yes.
I wrote up a story on Contra Costa County, California, where the district attorneys there in Contra Costa County are saying they're no longer going to be prosecuting misdemeanor cases of assault, theft, these various real crimes where people are victimized by these crimes, because they just don't have the money. California's run out of money. They're having to lay off 11 DAs there in Contra Costa County, another 14 within 2 months. They can't afford to prosecute shoplifting, vandalism, graffiti, all these other crimes, and yet they'll still go after the people with a little baggie of pot.
It's time to tax and regulate marijuana. We've been working on that in this show for nigh on 14 years now, since '96. And one of our longtime supporters passed away a couple years ago. That's Dr. Todd Mikkelsen, but he was here in December of 2005 at the Oregon Medical Cannabis Awards, and we have a couple little video clips we're going to play of him over the next couple weeks, and here's one this evening. So I hope you enjoy the lost wisdom of one of the fallen warriors in the drug war to end marijuana prohibition, Dr. Todd Mikkelsen.
We roughly estimate that about a third of the people are receiving letters of recommendation and approval for primarily emotional or mental problems, and that cannabis is a unique psychotropic in this context, in that it has effects on both cognition and affect that also are inextricably connected with different kinds of physical functioning. For example, with anorexia, people get inadequate nutrition because of their anxiety causing suppression of the appetite, and that when they receive cannabis, the nutrition is improved because the peristalsis and the spasm is relieved, peristalsis is promoted, so also evacuation, which then produces improved mood and improved functioning. With regard to cognition, this also includes people with thought disorders, and you might find this kind of unusual, but there are certain aspects of cognitive functioning that cannabis helps, like suppressing or decreasing obsessive thinking, and also paranoid ideation and paranoid delusional thought. Interestingly, the short-term memory loss that people experience when they acutely medicate with usually inhaled cannabis, they can't hold a paranoid delusion long enough. And the same goes for obsessive compulsive disorder, because they can't keep up this string of pathologic associations. Also, the modulation of affect also affects the cognitive behavior. With decreased anxiety, this decreases the pressure for this abnormal type of thought. I believe that a new category is warranted that cannabis fits, and that's easement. If you look that up in the dictionary, you'll see several meanings. And one of the main meanings is giving ease, not the property legalistic kind of passage or going on to some property and getting certain rights, but easement as a calming effect. And this is what I believe cannabis more closely approximates. It's not the same as a benzodiazepine, which produces sedation and, ironically, depression. There is no free lunch pharmacologically. So people do not like the benzodiazepines and other sedatives for these kinds of reasons, and cannabis helps restore emotional responsivity in a normal way. And this also goes along with people with their paranoid ideation and disturbance of interpersonal relationships. With certain people with thought disorder, they note that they're more able to relate to others, which then improves their self-esteem and their social functioning. You're never going to find this written anywhere because of the psychiatric literature being horribly biased. And I've looked through the APA publications going back maybe 70 years, and it all is tainted with the antisocial element and calling it dysfunctionality or character defect or other kinds of pejorative, condemnatory terms. And so don't...
That's Dr. Todd Mikkelsen, who passed away a couple of years ago and was a friend of ours and frequent guest on earlier versions of this television show at the Oregon Medical Cannabis Awards in 2005. We'll have more of that next week, but I think it ends a little bit more punch.
Yeah.
But he was definitely a leading thinker in the introduction of medical marijuana back into Western culture.
Oh, yeah.
He self-published a book, The Medical Marijuana Papers, in '74, and sold thousands of those. And it was one of the first. It was a compilation of medical journal articles dating from the 1840s up until the 1970s. And so it was a very valuable resource and had a lot of different conditions documented in one location.
Yeah.
So he was a scholar in that regard. His library is pretty extensive, and hopefully it'll be available to the public one day. We have a couple items here we're going to show. We're starting down here with this nifty, it's a Victor's Infant Relief Formula with cannabis. It's supposed to be good for severe cure for all bowel diseases arising from indigestion, viz. Cholera, infantum, griping, green, or slimy stool, colic, and spasms of the bowels. An indispensable remedy in teething, too. Victor's Infant Formula. Right next door from AP, the Associated Pharmacists of Chicago, is a balsamic cough anodyne. It's on the side. It says a very useful, soothing expectorant. Here, it's a sedative, stimulating expectorant. Recommended by us in cases of irritative, nervous, spasmodic, or tickling cough. It has a half of a grain of hydrochloride of heroin and 3/4 of a grain of extract of American cannabis or cannabis sativa, assayed and physiologically tested, according to this, including chloroform and hypochymus, and chloroform. Well, chloroform, heroin, and cannabis. An adult dose is a teaspoon every 4 or 3 or 2 hours. The cough is troublesome.
No matter what was wrong with you, you wouldn't care after you took some of that.
Then next door we come to a couple of tiny things. These are core treatments. Now, the THCF Museum currently has about 200 items, and 50 of those are corn medicines, including some from Johnson & Johnson and their predecessor, Seabury & Johnson. This one is from the Corn Picker, Scientific Foot Treatment Company of Chicago, Illinois, and there's a couple little samples that you put on your corn or callus. And this one is inside. It's got like several parts. You don't know, unscrew this and take out that, and then open up this, and then there's your corn medicine.
Nesting doll there.
Yeah, it's protected, and and it's been shipped. It's got stamps on the side. I wonder how old those stamps are. It says 2 cents. It was a long time ago, huh? And then next door is one of the largest items. Not the largest, but definitely in the top 10 largest items to come into the THCF Museum, and it is a compound of cannabis, cannabis compound from Merrill Company. Merrill's still around. They're still in business with that name. And this one has some other things in it, but it says it's cannabis compound as its title, and it's big. It's a gallon jug. Then right next door is one of the most nicely preserved items from the recent. These are all recent acquisitions over the past 3 months of our museum through the magic of eBay. And this one is from Upjohn, another company that's still in existence. Tincture of cannabis from the Upjohn Corporation. That's the end of our show and tell, our sharing for this evening. And tune in next week. Maybe we'll have some newer things yet again. This is a compilation from a little over a couple months, I think, the new things. But we have a caller. Hello, caller. You're on the show. Caller, can you hear me?
Yes, is that me?
That's you.
Hi, Paul.
Welcome back.
This is Willie from Critical Care.
Hey, how you doing, Willie?
Oh, pretty good. I don't know if it's the showing of Dr. Todd or working with hospice patients, but boy, I was bawling like a baby watching Dr. Todd. Jeez.
Yeah. I miss him. Yeah, it's not. We've got a lot of fallen comrades in the drug wars, and I just look at that like we've got some very powerful spirit helpers out there if we can learn to channel them, if that's possible. But
I wanted to ask you, did you get that 2.5, or I think it was a little over 2.5 pounds to normal?
Well, it was distributed. I got some of it to normal, some samples, but believe me, it went to patients.
Yeah, I know. One thing we do know is we took a vote here, and we've always trusted you and your good judgment and your good work.
I got a
we
lot
have
of
no
patients
problem.
asking for cannabis all the time, and so
Yes.
I give it out constantly.
We all
Even
do.
to patients who aren't monitored, especially if you're out there and you have cancer or you're going through chemotherapy and you just can't wait to get cannabis. You can come by our show or every Friday night, or give us a call and we will try to help.
And may I say, Russ,
Yes, sir.
I want to thank you for all the hard work you've been doing. My gosh, you're all over the place.
Thank you very much. I do it for a good cause.
Sister Sativa,
Yes.
I would like to address you, dear lady. And you do such a wonderful job with cutting. One day I'd like to come over and cut with you and Madeline.
Well, thanks. I really appreciate that.
Oh, I appreciate all the work that you both have done. You're just marvelous. And Tim,
I'm here.
you keep up that good work, boy.
Thank you.
You
Thank
are
you very
just
much.
fabulous. And the crew, I thank you all, and God bless you all. Thank you. Good night.
Well, thank you for
Thank
that
you.
donation
Always
as well.
nice. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Willie at Critical Care, a supporter.
Now, I wanted to address something that Dr. Todd was saying on the video there, and he was talking about the use of benzodiazepines and these other harsh pharmaceutical drugs. I recently did a post on the Daily Audio Stash blog where I was looking into the pharmaceutical industry, and particularly these ads that you see. I mean, it seems like every other ad on TV today is, pop a pill for something.
Yes.
And so, interesting little statistic that I dug out of this. If a person goes to the doctor and they bring in and they mention a drug that they've seen on a TV ad, the doctor 70% of the time will prescribe that drug. 7 out of 10 times, if you see a commercial and it says, ask your doctor about, Damitol, they will give it to you 70% of the time.
Damn it all. I like that one.
Yeah. And the other thing that really amazed me too is, we talk a lot about medical marijuana being a way for people to kick a lot of their opioids or benzodiazepines that they're using pharmaceutically. They reduce their use by half or even a third of how many pills they're taking, and that gives you some idea why big pharma wouldn't be interested in medical marijuana. Here's something to keep in mind. The markup on a pill of Xanax or Prozac compared to what the ingredients cost is between 250,000% and 568,000%.
Wow.
So that gives you an idea of the profit margins we're talking about and the money we're talking about that helps to keep marijuana illegal.
But that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's the law enforcement industrial complex, I like to call it, and the petrochemical companies. They also have a vested interest in prohibition. We have another caller. Hello, caller. You're on the show.
Hello? Yeah, I'd like to know, with your strive for the legalization and taxation, how does that affect patients already growing their own?
That's a good question. Well, there's nothing that would overturn the existing, in the new versions of our taxation and regulation bill. We had originally written a version before the medical marijuana law even went into effect. And so in that version, it overturned all existing medical marijuana laws. But in our new version, our proposed bill would leave the medical marijuana system intact. Now, it would also allow adults to grow their own without a permit or license. But because of concerns of patients, we've decided to go ahead and leave the medical marijuana law intact. I think once marijuana is legally available and sold at stores, that the price of cannabis to patients should be subsidized and not taxed. But in the interim, I think we'll need to see the medical marijuana law remain intact until such time as it's not needed anymore. And so that's what our proposal would do. And I think the other proposals out there are definitely going to protect the OMA.
Well, I know the Dutch people were saying that a lot of the patients in the Netherlands choose to buy their cannabis at coffee shops because the state garden, if you will, only provides 3 different choices. And so because they prefer to have more choices, many of them go ahead and buy their cannabis at a coffee shop anyway. And if you have a prescription there and you go to a coffee shop, they give you a discount over what you would just pay if you were just coming in to buy it for recreational use.
It ain't cheap there.
No, it's not. And that's another
About
thing.
half the cost it is
It
here.
is. It's cheaper, but it's still not at the affordability level that medicine would need to be for people that live on $500, $600, $700, $800 a month. How are they going to afford even $100, $150 an ounce? Is a lot of money. So I think that there's a lot of work to be done there.
Yeah, there certainly is. A lot of us know about the wide variety of conditions that medical marijuana helps, but I think we need to run through those at least once per show, so let's go down that list. The one that is the largest single category for patients out there, and about 60 to 70% of the folks who have medical marijuana permits have it, it's for chronic pain. The next largest group is for nausea, and there's a lot of different conditions that come under the heading of nausea. Recently, just yesterday, a bill went out, or a movement in Washington, to include Barrett's syndrome and esophagus and celiac disease, which is a gluten intolerance to the disease. And those are currently conditions that our doctors have recommended under the nausea provision. But in Washington, they wanted to just put that in explicitly. I think that effort should be putting PTSD in. It's actually on the list of conditions in New Mexico now, or post-traumatic stress syndrome, which the Israeli army gives patients marijuana for. And depression being another one that, as Dr. Todd McCurry mentioned. But others here are AIDS, glaucoma, irritable bowel syndrome, seizures and spastic disorders, asthma, which is a spastic disorder, GERD and Crohn's disease, gastrointestinal disorders, and neurodegenerative diseases and cancer. All of those qualify for medical marijuana, and we have doctors all across the United States who can help you get a medical marijuana permit. If you need that help, or you, a friend or loved one do, let them know about our toll-free number. It's 1-800-723-0188. That's 1-800-723-0188. And we have a portal to a lot of our sites at hemp.org. That's HEMP.org. You can click on the clinics there, or a lot of other things. We also have classes here in the Portland area every Wednesday night from 5:30 to 7:30. We have beginning, intermediate, and introductory classes on growing marijuana. And for more information, you can call that number, 503-235-4606. And we have another caller. Hello, caller. You're on the show.
Oh, am I on the show?
Yes. Hello.
Oh, yes, I actually started watching your show last week. It's my second show, and I noticed the lines that you have on there that medical marijuana assists with individuals with neurological disorders or spasticity from a neurological disability or disorder, and I would like more information on that.
Sure. Well, how would you? Well, there's studies, and a lot of times we read those studies in terms of news reports on our show, but there are recent studies showing that marijuana stops or just significantly slows the progression of multiple sclerosis. And while I can't provide you the sites off the top of my head, if you drop an email to our office, we'll respond.
How about like old-fashioned spinal cord injuries, which is what I have. I have a C567 with 6 being subluxed, and I've noticed that my spasticity has increased over the last 4 years.
Yeah. Like cannabis will definitely help with that. There's several medicinal compounds in cannabis, and the best one for spasticity and neurological disorders and degenerative diseases is to take cannabis orally, to take it in a food or a capsule. And it's really not the THC which provides the main relief in cannabis. The THC is found in the flowers of cannabis and is primarily responsible for the high associated with cannabis, but the medicine that controls spasticity and helps patients with neurodegenerative diseases is CBD, or cannabidiol. You can actually eat something made from the leaf, which won't get you high at all, but will take care of your spasticity and slow the progression of neurodegenerative diseases.
Well, and how about the tinctures that, like, I've seen some people make, and they take them sublingually, like in a little eyedropper. Are you familiar with those?
Yes. We sure I have amongst our museum items Sativex bottles. Yeah, here's a tincture right here of pure cannabis, and this one had other things mixed in. But I make tinctures myself from alcohol and glycerin. And, of course, we give recipes to every patient on butter and oil extraction processes. Then that butter and oil can be used in any recipe. And also how to make a flour or powder that can be added to most foods.
Well, and
we give
also you can
recipes on
use it
making-
topically,
on
and that's
capsules.
that might
topically
work
is
for
another.
this
I don't
patient.
give recipes on making topical.
Mhm.
But you can take tinctures, for instance, and use them topically. I do that myself
Yes,
sometimes.
or you could make a cream and apply it directly to the place where you're having the spasm or pain, and it will just be absorbed through the
In
skin.
our medical museum of medical marijuana items over the past 150 years, we have several topical medicines, including large patches from both Johnson & Johnson and its predecessor, Seabury & Johnson. In a couple of cases, these are cannabis patches that take cannabis resin that's been extracted, mix it with aspirin, and then they apply it topically.
So I literally could make or get an ointment and put it on my legs where I have the significant spasticity right at those sites.
And I can't promise it will help, but it might help, and I've heard good reports from a lot of people, and I've found a little bit of relief from it myself.
Oh, wow. So you have some of those recipes then online.
Yeah.
I had no idea. Well, I thank you very much. That might actually kind of save my life with all my medical bills and the prescriptions that I've been having to take from the medical community. It's literally thousands and thousands a year. You know, like one medication alone is about $800 and some odd a month.
You know, a great resource for synopsises of medical journal articles is the Normal News Archive. Paul Armento of Normal, and Russ here is a coordinator for National Normal as well. You're the chapter outreach coordinator now, and the host of the daily podcast from here in Portland, Oregon. And you can find most of the journal articles are synopsises of all the significant ones are listed there amongst those the news archives.
Check out norml.org, and right there on the front page, bottom right, will be a little graphic that says Emerging Clinical Applications for Cannabis and Cannabinoids. And it's Paul Armentano's complete distillation of just about every study you'd want to know about medical marijuana.
We also have one on our website at hemp.org that is compiled by this web maven, Granny Stormcrow. And so it lists literally 500 different studies broken down by conditions in alphabetical order. And the studies talking about medicinal cannabis's applications.
Yeah, well, it's kind of interesting, and then I'll let you go, but my insurance will pay. I have a $5 copay, and they'll pay $800 and some odd for, each one of these medications, but they're not going to pay for me to get like a medical marijuana card, right?
Oh, well, that's not good.
Yeah,
One
doesn't make Pfizer anymore.
good thing I can say is that the IRS will allow you to deduct all your expenses for growing marijuana, the electricity to power your bills, even the area of your home or property on which you grow marijuana, just like a home office. And over 10,000 patients have been approved for those tax deductions by the IRS.
Oh, well, that's good to know. Yeah. Well, I'm going to be checking out your website. Maybe I can wean myself off of taking all these anti-spasticity meds and all the pain meds that are costing a fortune each month.
Sounds good.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for
I really
your phone
enjoyed
call.
your show.
You've sparked definitely an informative topic for our viewers. Thanks. We have a benefit coming up for the Hemp Stock Festival. We might
Yes,
get
we do.
Sylvie Camera 2 to focus in on that. Coming up on Saturday, June 6, 2009, at 7 p.m. till midnight, we will have the Hemp Stock 2009 benefit dinner at the Village Ballroom, 700 Northeast Deacon here in Portland. It's a benefit for the nonprofit and our organization, THCF, that funds Hemp Stock. And this year it's going to be at Kelly Point Park. And so it's $20 per person. We'll have a large buffet, a Vegas-style buffet, which I think means lots of different foods. It'll be friendship and fun as well. Find out more about Hemp Stock at hempstalk.org. That's HEMPSTALK.org. There you have it. So the fundraiser is going to be on Saturday, June 6th at 7 p.m. And tomorrow, Oregon Normal has their bi-monthly cardholder meetings for patients again at the same place.
Yep.
We got
700 Northeast Deacon. Doors open at around 11, and the doors close at noon. So make sure you get there on time to get inside, because once the doors close at noon, we don't let anyone in.
That's
Open
right.
to Oregon Normal members who are members or card holders in the medical marijuana program only.
Yep. So, is there anything that you would like to say in closing, Sister Sativa?
I would just like to say that I think that it's important that we believe in ourselves and embrace our success and redouble our efforts.
Exactly. We want to thank you.
Keep that ball rolling, and we're gonna get to our goal.
Yep. And what about you, Russ?
I'd like to encourage everyone to get active, to join NORML, to join a marijuana policy organization, whichever one you choose, but get involved. Take $5 a month and donate it to NORML or one of these organizations that can make a difference. As we get these commercials on the air and we can fight for people's rights. It's going to be a very, very busy summer. I'm headed to Aspen in a couple weeks for NORML's Aspen Legal Seminar. There's Seattle Hemp Fest. There's Portland Hemp Stock. There's plenty to get involved with, and there's something for everyone, some sort of volunteer opportunity for everyone. I volunteered 4 years ago, and
look where you are now.
Look what happened. You can get involved. You can make a difference. It's all about people. It's all about coming together. Check out normal.org, Oregon NORML site at ornormal.org, and get involved.
Yeah, stay tuned. We will see more movement in ending adult marijuana prohibition here in the Northwest. I'd like to also announce that now, this year for 2009, THCF Medical Clinics is the main sponsor of the Seattle Hemp Fest. Their posters and T-shirts will be saying THCF Medical Clinics presents the Seattle Hemp Fest. I'm pretty proud of that. We're able to provide them with some financial support, and we're happy to put our name up there alongside such a prestigious organization.
Well, as a member of the core staff, thank you.
Thank you. And I want to thank you, viewers, as well. Tune in next week and help us restore hemp. Good night.